Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us as we get ever closer to the March 5th town meeting day, doing a number of shows and trying to interview candidates in contested races here in the St. Albans, Swanton area. And we have two of those candidates today, two candidates for the Swanton Selectboard. Amy Raymond. Amy, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And Joel Clark, who happens to be on the select board now. Joel, your second stint on the select board, or am I missing a stint or two?
It's the second stint on the select board, yes.
Having been appointed, Ed White didn't finish his term, so you got appointed late last year?
Yes, was able to go and attend January and February meetings, and up for election in March.
And again, one year left on that term, so you're
Yes.
running for a one-year term. And I should note, not the only contest in Swanton, also incumbent selectman Nicole Draper being challenged by Alan Letourneau. Folks I've interviewed, that's for a two-year term, so a couple of contests. Amy, give us some background. Tell us about yourself.
I'm originally from this area. I grew up just off from the Highgate Road. I am from a farm family community. I moved away for a small period of time, but my roots are here in this area. I have done a little bit of land development. I am involved in agriculture, and I'm just really interested in being involved in my community and how some of these projects move forward.
Interesting. What involvement have you had in Swanton? What have you done? Have you been involved in any boards or anything, or organizations?
No, this is actually my first approach into community service, and with the year that was left on the appointment, I just thought that would be a really good launching place for somebody a newcomer that wanted to get their feet wet and get involved.
Great. Can you tell us a little more about your agriculture background or work or whatever?
Oh, my grandparents were very involved in agriculture, and some time ago, my mother and I had started a cut flower business, and as I said, I had developed some lands, but they used to belong to my grandfather, and as I started this small project, I actually fell in love with the landscape, and I have a very nice orchard that I'm trying to reclaim now, and so I've become very interested in agriculture, particularly in my area, because I'm an R1, and then kind of how the Southern Growth District that's going to be backing up to that area, how those two will work together.
Interesting. This is the area not too far from exit 20 of I-89.
Yep.
And was surely getting attention. Joel, good to see you. Again, for folks, you're a pretty well-known person around here, but give us some background on yourself.
Well, a little bit of background we can talk about. A long time ago, I was born and raised in Richford, and went off to school in Navy ROTC, and spent a few years with the active duty Navy. Switched over to the Navy Reserve and was working at Plattsburgh, and when they decided they were going to close the base, took up residency in Swanton in 1994, so I consider myself still a newbie because I hear people talk about their lineage and everybody they went to school with and so on. But
when did the base shut down?
95.
95.
Yeah.
Boy, huge news.
Yeah, huge news. Was very comfortable over there with the engineering position that I had, but was able to switch over with the Vermont Air National Guard and take up residency in Swanton. And
as I recall, I think the department, and you would obviously know this, the Department of Defense, didn't they want to keep it and maybe expand it, but the base closure committee obviously saw it differently.
Oh yes, spent a lot of time prepping for the increase of planes that were going to come into Plattsburgh, and the commission voted otherwise, and it was quite a shock.
So you set up shop in Vermont after that?
Back in Vermont. Yes,
and
then in 1995 ran for a planning commission position, and spent 10 years on planning, 10 years in the Development Review Board, 8 as a selectman, and then did 7 years as the road commissioner as well. Pretty much got done in 2020, and then some plans have changed, and going to be spending the full year in Swanton, and decided I still had a little more to give, and decided to run again.
Here you are. And I should note also there's a third select board candidate on the ballot, that being Earl Fournier, the select board chairman, running for a 3-year term unopposed. So 3 seats at stake. How have you been going about campaigning? Tell us about your campaign a little bit.
Well, it was a little bit last minute. I just happened to be at the town office, and I was doing some research, some historical research, and, there are various topics that come up from time to time, and while I have attended a few different meetings, I hadn't got involved, and so, there's this old adage that often people like to complain about things that are going on in their community.
Really? You're hearing some complaints out there, are you?
Well, I always like to say to people that, one, you probably, if you want your vote to count, you need to get out there and you need to vote first and foremost. But two is, I believe that people should get involved in their community, that it shouldn't be complaints, it should be how do we work together to make the area better for everyone. So more about solutions than focusing on things that might not be going well.
Any particular issues? I'm sure people talk to you about different issues. Are there some standout issues out there that you're running into?
There's not really standout issues. You were asking me about my campaign.
Yeah.
So like I had said, I was kind of last minute, and so I decided to visit people within my community that I had ties with, particularly in the town. But I also went out and I visited people within the village of Swanton. So I visited a lot of businesses that were there, and I did hit Merchants Row. And so upon talking with those people and asking them for their support, I quickly realized that a lot of the people that are merchants in those areas aren't necessarily our voting community, but they do bring a good source of income to us as a town. And so there were a couple of people that were concerned about the project that we're going to be doing down at Marble Mill, and then what that parking situation, I guess, might look like for them once we start making those changes. So I would be active in wanting to collaborate that piece with those business owners as we move forward. I'm really not sure if we have it all kind of figured out yet as far as how that's going to change, because I know there's going to be like a crosswalk there, and there's some concerns with people with mobility issues and their ability to get to those storefronts. So that those were a couple of the things that were mentioned when I was out.
Yeah. Joel, how are you going? Of course, you're on the select board now. Are you doing some active campaigning out there? Or?
Active in the sense of a lot of talk with a lot of people that I know and have worked with over the years, including members of the village and village trustees. So it's, as far as going out and doing a lot of knocking on doors, not really. Again, it's talking with a lot of the people that I know and just letting them know why I'm doing it, and talking with them about some of the issues.
Of course, the village has the real big money issue, of course, with the public safety facility of a $14 million plus price tag. So what issues? You're talking to a lot of folks. Again, that's certainly a huge issue for the village. What are you hearing about for the town?
Well, I think that's a great one to start with, because it affects the town.
It affects the town.
And the reason it affects the town is the fire department. The town pays for 77% of the fire department budget.
And that's based on grand list? Is that where that
It's based on the grand list,
Okay.
yes. So the fire department, if they move into a new building, the increase in the cost of the building, 77% of that is coming to the town taxpayers.
Yeah.
And with the police, we are not right now looking at the 24/7. It was a topic that came up, but we're looking at 10-hour shifts.
Which would be 2 more hours a day, 7 days a week if voters approve the proposed expenditure, right?
Correct. But the cost of the new facility, again, it would be 77%, something we'd have to look at, and it's an increase for the town taxpayers, and it's a concern, especially when you add in the school tax that is being looked at. That's a significant increase for people who are on a limited budget.
Yeah. And again, what the town's looking for police, with the select board, and I think unanimously support this, the police protection article, about $475,000 for, which would give you a little more coverage, correct?
It would give us a little more coverage.
10 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yes.
But that certainly is up significantly.
The cost is up significantly, and several reasons behind it. It is explained in the report.
Yeah.
One big cost increase is dispatching, another one is medical. The other is just the way the village took a look at how they are running the contract with the town, and now we are sharing more of the cost. One thing the village police department needs is additional staffing. They have a part-time admin person, and the amount of work that they do is significantly increased over the years. So some of that cost, when you look at the 10 hours and then the number of hours, the 2 shifts that the village does, it comes out that we are about 33% of the budget. It is a shocker to folks, but the select board took a look at that, and the select board thought that that was the right way to go. Our village police over the last couple of years has greatly increased their efforts, especially in removing illegal drugs from the area. I happened to go on a police ride with them one night and got to see that part of it in action, and I was very impressed with how the others came in off shift to assist, and the cooperation with the Vermont State Police, et cetera. Very, very impressed, very professional, and fully support the relationship between the town and the village with the police.
Interesting. Amy, what about the police protection article about $475,000? Do you support that?
Well, first I want to preface by saying that I really appreciate the police presence. I appreciate everything they do. I think that it's very important. But to Joel's point, the tax increases that we're seeing right now, I really feel like is driving a lot of people to move other places because the tax base has been so high.
Out of curiosity, if they're moving other places, like what other places are you hearing about?
A lot of our boomers,
out of state even?
yeah, a lot of our boomers are actually moving
out of state,
and they're choosing not to stay here. So with that in mind, and you know what our bottom dollar is, and I think that I heard you say at another meeting, you know, especially in the town, we want to know how much it's going to cost us. So I don't feel that it's not a matter of importance. I just feel that it might be too expensive, and I think I'd like to learn a little bit more about my understanding that if we didn't have the coverage from Swanton Police in the town, that it sounds like we would be managed by the Vermont State Police. So I think I'd like to gather some more information around that. But right now, I think that my personal vote would be no, not that we don't need expansion or that we don't need that coverage. I just think that we should come back to the drawing board and just take a little closer look at how we can do it and make it more affordable.
Yeah, I think you're right. If that article is voted down, you're down to Vermont State Police. But Joel, you want to jump? I'm not sure. I think you tell me. State police are cut pretty thin these days. So
absolutely, the amount of coverage they have to do. It's not wouldn't just be Swanton they're covering for the 24. They're going to be covering several other Franklin County towns, so the ability for them to respond is going to be limited. And of course, they're going to respond to serious crime. Sure. But it's the other stuff that the police department responds to, and just the presence. Yeah. And one of the things we hear is, well, we don't see them. Well, the shift that they have is mostly in the nighttime. Yeah. So unless you're standing at your window when they are out patrolling, of which we have 50-something miles of road, you're not going to see them. But they do patrol the roads, and they do spend time out in the community besides just doing the drug enforcement and so on. And having them around is a benefit, and especially the whole thing with the illegal drugs. Yeah. State police are not going to have the resources to do the same work that the Swanton police are doing in driving that market elsewhere. Yeah. So again, the select board supports the police protection article and all the other articles on the warning. I assume, is that unanimous for the select board? Yes, and one thing I think that needs to be real clear is there's only a couple of articles on there that we have total control over. Yeah. You know, the general budget and the highway and the fire department, the police, and so on, the library, they come to us with a proposal, and we try to influence it, but the bottom line is they're the ones who put those numbers together. The only other option we would have, and it would be a very difficult one, is to say we're not going to put that on the ballot, and then they would have to do a separate vote, and there's a cost to that. So we do our best to influence and try to keep costs down when we look at that. And again, I'm coming in very late this year,
Yeah.
so the ability to influence it like I would like to is a little more limited when you're coming in January and that budget process starts in November. But
Right.
very interested in working and to keep costs down, and do not expect a large police increase in costs for the next year.
Yeah. The other articles on the warning, Amy, any issues with the other articles? You got,
I didn't really find any issue with the other articles
Yeah.
on there. I did note that when the meeting that was held with the town, I think that there was some confusion surrounding exactly, and I think that maybe you already touched on it, but I think that it was confusion for maybe some of the town voters as far as this big municipal building that was going to be built, right? And that the town wasn't having a direct vote on it. So I think that some people felt like it was taxation without representation because we weren't directly voting on that itself, the new building. We are voting on the budgets, obviously. But I think that there was a little bit of disconnect as far as our say, our vote on that.
Hearing anybody talk, does the word merger come up in your conversations with folks who?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who lives in the town and, or in the village, and we had a conversation about, what we thought about the merging of the village and the town together. I think that they each have their own nuances and certain reasons why they should be separate. With that said, I like the fact that they're both located on the same website now, and I would really like to encourage cooperation and working together as if they are completely one entity, but I think that there are logical reasons to separate out some of the things because there's certain things that affect the village that don't necessarily affect the town, and I think that historically, because this merger between the village and the town, I can remember from being quite young, it's not the first time that this was put up for a vote, and so I know that last time it was voted down. I think that there's this idea that if there was a merger, that people in the town don't want to feel like they're paying for services or things that they're not getting the same share of the benefit of, I think, is probably the issue with that topic.
So you think that's topic, a merger, possible merger might be worth exploring some more anyway?
It sounds like they're supposed to be having a meeting on the 26th on the subject, if I'm not mistaken.
Joel, is that anything you can,
There's, the 26th is just a joint meeting talking about the budget.
just
So
an
like the town-
informational
The
information?
town, yeah, it's an informational meeting. The town will cover their budget, the village will cover their budget.
Okay.
If I could, a little bit on the
Sure.
merger, and
Sorry, I was going to ask you that.
it was something.
I'm sure that subject comes up every once in a while, right?
Oh, yes, and I was one who used the M word several times when I first moved to Swanton, and then I realized when you say that, you watch people's faces and their reaction, and you realize that it's a big uphill battle to even have a discussion about it. But what I've really realized is people vote with their pocketbook. And if we were to look at a merger, one group, either the village or the town, is going to end up paying more in taxes, and the other is going to see a reduction in taxes. And so how do you overcome that? How would you overcome that? That to me is the big question. I think it would be great to have one entity running the whole of Swanton, and I see a lot of benefit in doing that. I will say right now that I have a good relationship with the village trustees, the village manager, the village president. The highway for years has been cooperating with the public works of the village, the town highway. If they need a piece of equipment, like they want to use the town's big excavator, the town will let them use that. And then when there's an issue that comes up, they need some support from the public works of the village, they help. So there is cooperation at that level. Sometimes it's real easy for people to pick at and say, the village and the town, there's too much, disagreement going on there. There's certainly friction there at times, but overall, working together to make things work for the good of Swanton.
Yeah. Do you think a merger, does it think it's worth looking into that more, or are you pretty much okay with the status quo right now?
I think it's worth spending a few hours, a meeting or two, and letting people know the reasons either why it could work or what the cost would be, and then, because people just don't understand those issues unless you spend some time educating them. And as Amy said, the whole issue with the facility for the police and the fire, the meeting that the town held, was a lot of confusion between the building, between 24/7 coverage, between 10-hour coverage, and trying to straighten that out in a meeting like that and get all the answers out is difficult. And it's something you got to keep talking about and letting people know so they understand exactly what they're voting about. When you look at the article, it doesn't say 10-hour coverage or 24/7 coverage, and someone came to me and said, that increase, is that for 24/7 coverage? And it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any magical solutions to the truck traffic issue? Certainly a huge issue in Swanton. I suspect that issue comes up once in a while in your conversations, or not so much?
The traffic.
Just truck traffic, you know.
A little bit. I certainly heard the board talk about on 207 in particular. You know, there's a bus stop. I happen to be sitting in front of the bus stop at Sierra's Circle, just over the hill. And I looked at my partner and I said, I'm going to get hit from behind right here because it's just a really bad spot and people are going too fast. So my understanding is that they were going to write a letter to the state asking if we could drop the speed limit on that road, which I think is great.
Now 50 for most of that road, right?
Right.
Yeah, it is. And I had also recently contacted the people that are going to be in charge of the paving project, and I had asked if they could reconsider the way that the passing zones are right there, because the development that we're at just before that, it's a passing zone, and that's the place where people really like to take off, and if you're turning left into your driveway, it's a place where you really have to watch behind you to see who's coming. So yes, we get a lot of traffic. I'm very pleased that they are going to be doing this paving project, and I think with the Southern Growth District, which is right next door, I think that traffic is going to increase, and I am hopeful that we're going to have, as we look to expand that area, what the infrastructure will look like in order to be able to sustain all these projects that we're going to be doing.
So I guess the hope anyway for what that's for, especially Route 78, when I think of truck traffic, I think of West Swanton. I guess the hope anyway is when the last segment of the interstate like highway north of the border, it's that Route 35, when that gets completed, I guess some folks are hoping that might cut down that truck traffic a bit anyway between Vermont and New York. I guess we'll see. You got hope for that or not particularly?
Hope for that. I think some of that is the federal government making the truck traffic easier for them to come through, because the crossing on 89 is not designed for a heavy load of truck traffic. So to cross over New York and come this way, and it would only make sense to increase that capability.
Right.
And
the Highgate Springs Port of Entry is supposedly getting a bunch of money to maybe improve that part of it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Community rec center is an issue, nothing on the ballot aside from just the recreation department. And Joel, I know you're pretty familiar with that subject. Nothing on the ballot about the community rec center, a new proposed one, and maybe there won't be in the future, but again, that issue is certainly one that Select Board has given a lot of attention to. And can you give us a quick update? Where does that stand now? You're still looking into that. There's certainly some support for a new, community recreation center.
Richard, that's one I'm very passionate about. The very large facility that the Select Board at least is still considering is one that includes a gym, much-needed gym space. I know some people say there's plenty of gym space in Swanton, but when you talk to elementary school, when you talk to MVU, you'll find out that it's booked up and we could use more. That whole project, we haven't given up hope on it yet, but what we realize is the large amount of money is not something we're going to go for a bond vote right now.
You probably did well not to put that on the ballot for March town meeting day.
That would have just added to a lot of the anxiety that's out there, and the board realized that, and that was even before I got on the board, so I give credit to the others on the board. They realized that. They want to look at ways to seek other funding and other fundraising, so that project is going to be a little longer in the, before it ever comes to fruition. The select board did put aside some ARPA money for the rec and for that facility, and there are some other things that can be looked at. And we met with the rec committee at our last meeting, and they're going to do a public affairs push after town meeting and talk about some other options that are out there as well. And if you get a chance, people should go take a look at the building the rec works out of right now. It is inadequate. It is outdated. It needs work. And for a place that so many kids, so much of our youth pass through, we can do better. And that is one thing I am going to strive to make sure we do better in 2024 and beyond.
Amy, do you hear much talk about the community rec center out there on the
Yeah,
campaign
I
trail?
did catch the last meeting. I do think that, it is time to do an update. I'm glad that we're going to look for some grants to do that. I think it's important for our youth to have an area that they can go to, and their involvement in the community is important.
Any other issues you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? Anything else coming up?
I did want to talk a little bit
We're down to
about
about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
The only things that I've kind of taken away from some of the meetings that I'm seeing right now is, and I was going to ask you, Joel, where we were at with the idea of doing not a merchant outreach, but economic development outreach, and kind of where we sit with that right now.
Well, economic development is something that is talked about a lot. The town has a certain role in that because the town, everybody that lives in Swanton comes under the umbrella of the town. So for a while, we did have a person hired just to work economic development.
Elizabeth Nance, I guess, right?
Yes, Elizabeth Nance was in that position. They made some changes. The town administrator now is 40 hours and spends more time on that piece of it. And then you get kind of the piece with the village, in the downtown of the village in Merchants Row, is the village has a certain amount of input to that. But we talk about economic development and trying to bring people in. The whole Southern Growth District, for something we're interested, it's great. The state projects, 2 of them possibly are going to happen, but that tax base, there's not a lot of tax revenue from that. Mm-hmm. But how do you entice other people, especially in the climate where the whole box store, they're not coming here like they used to. The whole box store industry, everyone, not everyone, a lot of people are doing the mail order. So what else can you put in the growth district that will be a revenue generator? And that is being talked about. But even before you can put much in there, you got to get the infrastructure into there.
Right, I'm really concerned with how we're going to pay for and what the infrastructure is going to look like in order to accommodate, one, the additional traffic. I think that we need probably some lights in there. But yes, more to your point, they do need to have water and sewer.
That's a big one, and who absorbs that cost when you have other parks and industrial parks that have that type of infrastructure? So those are some of the challenges that we face.
Dan, do about our last minute, give you 30 seconds or so and to make your case. Why would you like to be on the select board?
Make my case. So I'm interested in serving my community. I am passionate about that. I'm willing to learn, to listen, to research. I don't believe that one person needs to have all the answers, but I believe that they need to be open-minded enough to be able to find those answers and the solutions that we need for our community.
Very good. Joel, you're back on the select board. You'd like to stay there longer, huh?
Yes, I've got more to give, and I'm hoping to have the opportunity to do that. And if it doesn't work out this March, I'll be back next March. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay, very good. Again, 2 of the candidates for the Swanton Select Board. Appreciate your time. Amy Raymond.
Thank you for having me.
And current Selectman Joel Clark, again, seeking 1 year for the expired term of Ed White. Another year on the Select Board, and again, another contest between Nicole Draper and Alan Letourneau. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Again, Marchtown Meeting Day, not far away, coming up on Tuesday, March 5th. And I want to thank my producer, Alan Cunningham. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We appreciate you watching us here on Northwest Access TV. See you next time. Aye.